before Joaquin made it big. He had pursued me relentlessly for years. Everyone knew he loved me to the bone, and I once believed it without a shred of doubt. Until the 3rd year of our marriage. The paparazzi caught photos of him entering and leaving a female celebrity's bedchamber late at night. Mr. Joaquin, aren't you afraid of angering your wife and ending up in a divorce? He looked into the camera and smiled indifferently. She won't, and she doesn't dare. The next day, I tore up the pregnancy test and scheduled an abortion. I mailed the divorce papers to him, together with the shattered embryo. Chapter 1. When I found out I was 5 weeks pregnant. My husband, Joaquin, was already embroiled in a scandal with Lisa, the coldest, most untouchable female star in the entertainment industry. I clutched the test result, my face drained of color, staring at the TV screen. The paparazzi video played again and again. His car was parked beneath Lisa's villa. He leaned against the car, lighting one cigarette after another. When Lisa returned, he immediately stepped forward, carefully, attentively. He shielded her as she got out of the car. They seemed to argue about something. Lisa pushed him away with a frosty expression, yet he showed not the slightest hint of anger. Instead, he chased after her at once, lowering himself, coaxing her softly. In the end, Joaquin followed Lisa into the main villa. It wasn't until 2 hours later that he finally came out, drove away, and disappeared. Lisa was famous in the industry for her aloofness. In her 8 years since debut, this was the very first time she'd ever been involved in a romantic scandal. As a result, nearly every entertainment gossip account went completely insane, flooding the feeds non-stop. Chapter 2. The moment Joaquin's car arrived downstairs at the company, it was surrounded by a swarm of reporters. Mr. Joaquin, does your wife know about you and Miss Lisa? Aren't you afraid of angering your wife and ending up divorced? Joaquin stopped walking. He raised a hand, signaling his bodyguards and assistant to stand down. That handsome face, cold, composed, looked straight into the camera. Yet it felt as though he was looking past it, straight at me on the other side of the screen. She won't, and she doesn't dare. The reporter froze for a moment. Before another question could be asked, Joaquin's bodyguards had already stepped forward, forcing the crowd back. His figure quickly vanished from the frame. I still remember how Joaquin once said, countless times, that he would love only me for the rest of his life. On the day he married me, the man who was always restrained and steady had reddened eyes and shed tears. On our wedding night, drunk out of his mind, he clung to me and refused to let go. Like a child, he murmured over and over, Flora, I finally married you. Flora, no one in this moment is happier than I am. I, Joaquin, am the happiest man in the world. For 3 years after our marriage, everyone knew he adored me beyond measure, a notorious, over-the-top wife-doting maniac. And now, a brutal, merciless slap of reality landed squarely across my face. Chapter 3. By the time I returned home from the hospital, it was already very late. Joaquin had drunk a lot and was sitting on the sofa waiting for me. When he saw me come back, he did what he always did, stepped forward to take the bag from my hand. Then he squatted down to help me change my shoes. For the first time, I avoided him. Joaquin lifted his face to look at me. Flora, you're angry. How long has it been? I asked calmly. More than half a year. This is the second time. He looked like he had a headache. Rubbing his brow, in a hoarse voice, he said, Flora, you know that no one can ever shake your place in my heart. But sometimes, you also need to be understanding. Understanding about what? I asked. I have a lot of pressure too. I need an outlet. You're my wife, the woman I love. He pulled me into his arms, burying his face against my neck. Flora, there are some dirty things I can't do to you. Chapter 4. So you did it with her? Yes. He hesitated for a moment, but didn't deny it. I promise you, every time I took precautions, there won't be any accidents. What kind of accident? I pushed him away and sneered. Getting someone pregnant, or catching some filthy disease? Flora. He frowned slightly, impatience creeping in. Can you stop making a scene? I have a terrible headache. Joaquin. I looked at him, still that handsome face. still carrying traces of how fiercely he once loved me in our youth. But you see, people change. When I was very young, my parents divorced, and my mother left me behind. When she left, she warned me over and over again, Flora, don't trust men. Don't trust men's promises or vows. I trusted Joaquin, so this is my punishment. Let's get a divorce. What did you say? He suddenly looked up at me, as if he couldn't believe his ears. I said, let's get a divorce. Chapter 5. Divorce? Joaquin suddenly laughed. Flora, you're not a child anymore. Don't be so naive. If you divorce me, how will you survive? That's my business. I turned and walked into the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing my things. Joaquin leaned against the doorframe, watching me like it was a farce. Think it through carefully. If you divorce me, can you still afford million-dollar handbags? Dresses worth hundreds of thousands? From head to toe, everything you wear, what isn't paid for with my money? I pushed the suitcase aside. He wasn't wrong. Then I won't take any of it. Anything you bought, anything paid for with your money, I don't want it. Is that enough? I turned toward the bathroom and grabbed a few toiletries, stuffing them into my bag. He chased after me, eyes red, his handsome face slightly twisted. Flora, he grabbed my arm tightly. I tried to pull free, but his grip only tightened. It's because you married me that you have everything you have today. I'll pretend I didn't hear what you just said. Be good, and I'll get rid of Lisa. I promise. Nothing like this will ever happen again. Let's just turn the page, all right? He let go of me and gently patted my hair, softening his tone. When he saw hesitation on my face, the tenderness in his eyes deepened. Get a good night's sleep. There's a company banquet tomorrow night. I'll come pick you up in the afternoon. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Calm down on your own. With that, he turned and left. The sound of the door closing was very soft, yet it felt like a rusty iron nail, abruptly driven into my heart. I slowly slid down onto the floor. From my bag, I took out the pregnancy test report. Because of my mother, I had always been a firm believer in not getting married. But in the end, I still chose to marry Joaquin. I had even been someone who firmly believed in neither marriage nor childbirth. Yet after marrying Joaquin, I changed my mind. I wanted a child belonging to Joaquin and me, because I believed that a child raised in a family where the parents loved each other would never grow up like me, desperately lacking a sense of security, covered in thorns, difficult to approach. But now, I tore the pregnancy report to pieces without hesitation. Then I called my best friend, Amy. She was a doctor at a private hospital. I asked her to help me schedule the earliest possible procedure for the next day. Amy didn't ask much. She simply waited for me at the hospital early the next morning. Flora, you've been trying to conceive for over a year, Amy said softly, holding my hand. Now that you're finally pregnant, are you sure you don't want it? I don't. I smiled at Amy. Rather than bringing him into this world only to face broken parents and a shattered family, it's better not to let him suffer at all. Chapter 6. Amy looked at me, her eyes filled with heartache. Flora, no matter what happens, I'll stand by your side and stay with you. I nodded and hugged her tightly. The procedure didn't take long, because it was painless. I didn't feel any discomfort throughout. Amy pushed the door open and came in. When the anesthesia wears off later, it might hurt a little. If anything feels wrong, call me, I'll be right outside. But I stopped her and asked her to help me with one thing. Not long after, Joaquin called me. Flora, did you send something to me? Yes. What could it be that you had to mail it? His voice carried a doting smile. See for yourself. I hung up the phone. He set his phone down, frowned slightly, but still opened the phone box in front of him. The moment the box was opened, what appeared before his eyes was a shattered embryo sealed inside a vacuum bag, bright red, a bloody, mangled mass, along with a sheet labeled, Pregnancy Termination Procedure Record. Panicking, he grabbed the paper bag beside it, nearly knocking over the glass of water on the desk. Inside the paper bag were 2 copies of the divorce agreement. I had drafted the agreement myself. I didn't ask for half of the marital assets. I only wanted 1 apartment and 1 car. Flipping to the last page, there was my handwritten signature, every stroke careful and deliberate, just like when we signed our marriage registration papers back then. Joaquin's face went deathly pale, his jaw clenched tightly. With trembling hands, he picked up the sealed preservation bag again. The crushed, bloody flesh inside was a blur. Only at this moment did it truly register that this lump of flesh inside the bag was the child belonging to him and me, the child we had once looked forward to welcoming into the world together. A drop of water suddenly splashed onto the transparent bag. Joaquin abruptly went mad, clutching the bag as he charged out of the office. Chapter 7. After hanging up his call, a dull ache began to spread deep in my lower abdomen, but I hadn't slept all night, and at this point I simply couldn't hold on anymore. I ended up falling into a dazed sleep. It wasn't a deep sleep, my dreams were chaotic and fragmented. In my dreams, it felt like I had gone back to our school days. Back then, Joaquin was slender and fair, gentle and handsome, academically outstanding, gifted in both IQ and EQ. Back then, Flora had decent grades too, but gave all the teachers headaches. A stunningly beautiful problem girl. I didn't cause trouble or fight, didn't smoke or drink, didn't hang around bad crowds. I just skipped classes often and ignored everyone. Inside and outside school, there were countless boys who liked me, but I never spared a single one a glance. Those were rebellious years. My parents had divorced, one left far away, the other remarried. Having a home was worse than having none. My rejection and resentment toward men were carved into my bones. Every boy who pursued me eventually backed off, defeated by my arrogance and sharp tongue. All except Joaquin. From beginning to end, unwavering, he was like a gentle, persistent drizzle, slowly wearing down my defenses and resistance. When I skipped classes, I liked to hide by the river behind the school. I would sit there listening to music. In my headphones, the same classic old song played over and over, Dusk. I would sit there all afternoon, and he would stay with me all afternoon. When I completely broke down, hiding alone on the rooftop and refusing to let anyone near, he was the one who kicked open the rooftop door and wrapped his arms around me as I sat trembling on the railing. 3 years of high school, 2 years of college, 5 full years, he chased after me relentlessly, never once thinking of giving up. He told his family, his friends, his classmates, even his teachers, more than once. Seriously, in this lifetime, if I don't marry Flora, I won't marry anyone. This life, it's her. The day I agreed to be his girlfriend was on the university track field, at dusk, at the very same moment my mother had once left me, walking away without looking back. At first, he didn't dare believe it, but with reddened eyes, he grabbed every passing classmate, his voice trembling as he asked, "You saw it, right?" Flora nodded just now. Didn't she? She just said she's willing to be my girlfriend, didn't she? Every single person told him loudly. Yes, Flora agreed to you. By then, he was already the vice president of the student union, already someone who looked calm and composed in shirts and suits, yet he ran across the track like a child. I remember the evening breeze billowing his white shirt. I remember him running back to me, lifting me up, spinning me around again and again. I remember every word he ever said to me, every promise. But I can't remember when it started, when his hands could touch another woman, when his sweet words could be spoken to someone else. The Joaquin who once swore that in this lifetime, he would only ever choose Flora. When did he disappear? Chapter 8. Flora, you have to be understanding too. I'm under so much pressure, I have to find ways to vent and release it. But you're the woman I love most. Those filthy things, I can't do them to you. Divorce? Flora, if you leave me, how will you survive? Everything you wear and use, what part of it wasn't bought with my money? Flora, I love you. You're the only woman I've ever loved. No one can replace you. He held me, trying to kiss me and touch my body the way he used to. I suddenly opened my eyes, jolting awake from the heart-rending dream. My stomach churned violently. I leaned over the bed and vomited until everything spun. My phone buzzed a few times, suppressing the nausea. I picked it up. It was a message from an unfamiliar number. Happy now? Joaquin dumped me. You so-called legitimate wives are always this disgusting. A husband who stopped loving you long ago, and you still cling to him like your life depends on it. You've embarrassed women everywhere. You think crying, making a scene, threatening suicide will scare me off and let you sleep easy? Without me, there'll be countless other mistresses. If you've got the ability, make Joaquin fall back in love with you. Flora, do you know what your husband says about you when he's in bed with me? Flora, being aloof is fine, but pretending to be virtuous even when sleeping with your own man? You deserve it. I clenched my phone, staring at the words on the screen. In that moment, I couldn't even deny that Lisa wasn't entirely wrong. Last night, Joaquin promised he would get rid of Lisa, that nothing like this would ever happen again. But I knew very well, just as Lisa said, without her, there would be other women. Joaquin had already grown tired of me. Or rather, he was tired of our lukewarm, stagnant married life, tired of the unchanging way we had been with each other all these years. But he could have told me directly, instead of cheating within the marriage, instead of being gentle and doting with me on one hand, while sleeping with another woman on the other, then coming home and putting on an act, playing the picture-perfect, devoted husband. Chapter 9. When Joaquin arrived at the hospital, I had just finished my 4. Amy helped me pack up, ready to drive me home. He pushed the door open. I saw his Adam's apple bob, his thin lips pressed tightly together. After forcing his emotions down, he finally spoke hoarsely. Amy, I want to talk to Flora alone. Amy didn't answer. She looked at me instead. Did you sign it? I asked. Joaquin's eyes were frighteningly red. He looked at me, the corners of his eyes dipped slightly. He closed them for a moment before saying, Flora, I said we need to talk. Joaquin, answer my question. I won't sign. Then there's nothing to talk about. I withdrew my gaze and stood up. Amy, let's go. Joaquin suddenly stepped forward. The instant he grabbed my chin, Amy shouted in anger and panic. Joaquin, have you lost your mind? Flora just had a miscarriage procedure. So you know she just had a miscarriage procedure. He pinned me against the wall, speaking through clenched teeth, word by word. Before you decided to get rid of the child, did you ask me, the father, Flora? Amy, when you arranged the surgery for her, did you think about her future at all? That was a child, a life. What gives you the right to decide so casually? Amy bit her lip, stunned, tears dropping one by one. She didn't know how to answer. Guilt and fear were clearly written on her face. I couldn't bear to see her like that. Couldn't bear to drag her into the resentment between Joaquin and me. This was my own decision. What did it have to do with Amy? Amy, go wait outside for me, okay? Flora, don't worry. Amy, I'll be fine. I raised my hand, grabbed Joaquin's wrist, and pushed him away hard. Joaquin, I'll talk to you. Don't take it out on Amy. You know my temperament. Even if she hadn't helped me, I would have gone to another hospital. This child only had one ending anyway. The calmer my voice became, the heavier the violence on Joaquin's face grew. When I mentioned the child, emotion surged in his eyes. In the deep red of them, moisture slowly gathered. In that moment, the pain in my heart was no less than his. When he turned away and tilted his head up, refusing to let the tears fall, I couldn't deny that for a fleeting second. My resolve wavered. We had truly loved each other once. Maybe I shouldn't have been this ruthless. Maybe I should have left a way out. For both of us. Chapter 10. My eyes slowly grew wet. Until in the end, when Joaquin looked at me, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore and broke down crying. Flora. He opened his arms and pulled me into an embrace. I struggled for a moment, then stopped. Joaquin buried his face against my neck. My skin felt the burning heat of his tears. Don't divorce me. Forgive me this once. Flora. The child is gone. Just think of it as him having no fate with us. In the future, if you want one, we can still have another. Joaquin. We've known each other for so many years. You should understand me well. I touched his hair, still thick and jet black. He was in the prime of his life, young, capable, successful in his career, and I, at some point, had already fallen far behind him. Let's stop torturing each other. Let's separate. Flora. Joaquin cupped my face, bent down, and met my gaze at eye level. I could see the panic and fear in his eyes. I also knew that he probably still loved me, still couldn't bear to lose me, but his love, I no longer wanted it. Joaquin, I'm a bland, boring woman. I can't satisfy your desire for excitement. I don't have that many tricks. And look at me now, I'm just an ordinary housewife, without even a decent job. I know it. The gap between us is getting wider and wider. Just like you said, without you, I can't afford million-dollar bags or dresses worth hundreds of thousands. Flora, you know that was just something I said in anger. You know I just don't want a divorce. Angry words are still thoughts that have crossed your mind before they slip out, aren't they? I let out a soft laugh and covered my lower abdomen as I slowly sat down. Blood surged out, and my face grew even paler. Joaquin squatted down and held my hand. Flora, I'll say it again, no matter what. I will not sign the divorce papers. I looked at him calmly. Joaquin, what if I insist on divorcing you? Chapter 11. He held my hand tightly, but his gaze dropped, fixed on the floor. After a moment, he slowly lifted his head and met my eyes. If you don't want Amy to lose her job, if you don't want this miscarriage surgery to implicate that private hospital, the doctor who operated on you and every nurse who came into contact with you, then come home with me. Otherwise, I don't know how far I might go once I lose control. Flora, after all these years, you know me too. He suddenly smiled, gripping my wrist as the bones in his fingers tightened. Flora, don't force me. Don't drive me crazy. He released my hand, then gently caressed my face. How much I love you, you know better than anyone in this world. Chapter 12. The matter of divorcing Joaquin reached a deadlock, and Amy received a notice from the hospital, telling her to suspend work temporarily. The doctor who performed my surgery and several nurses were suspended as well. Joaquin spent a huge sum to acquire that private hospital. As long as I didn't give in for a single day, they wouldn't be able to return to work for a single day. These days, I had received many messages from strangers. Most of them were begging me. Joaquin even went to my father's home in person. That very night, I received a call from my father. Flora, you're not young anymore, yet you're still acting so willfully and recklessly. I say it's only Joaquin who indulges you and spoils you, refusing to argue with you. You aborted the child. How are you going to explain that to the Zhou family elders? And it's only Joaquin who's protecting you, helping you cover it up. And another thing, divorce. Don't you ever think about it again. Don't even mention it. My business with your aunt now depends entirely on Joaquin, and your younger brother and sister will rely on Joaquin to support them in the future. As the older sister, you act impulsively and without considering the consequences. Do you intend to ruin not only your own future, but your siblings' futures as well? Actually, I already knew what he would say the moment I picked up the phone, but hearing these words with my own ears still made my heart ache. He was my father, one of the closest people to me in this world. Yet he wasn't only my father anymore. He had a new family, a wife, children. How much weight could I, the daughter born of the ex-wife he despised, still hold in his heart? So a husband cheating doesn't matter? Even if he sleeps with someone else, the wife should be understanding and forgive him, is that it? Most men in this world are like this. If you divorce him, can you really find someone better? If it were my younger sister married to such a man, would you tell her to endure it too? How can you curse your own sister like that? She's only 20. Flora! I couldn't help but laugh. The laughter grew louder and louder, until tears splashed everywhere as I laughed. Flora, cough. Cough, Dad didn't mean it that way. Of course, Joaquin was indeed wrong this time. I already scolded him harshly. But think about it, you're already 27. If you divorce, what will you do in the future? While he still feels guilty toward you, hurry up and secure control over the finances. I hung up the phone. I knew that should be the last time I ever cried. Chapter 13. I called Joaquin. The divorce could be put on hold for now, but we had to live separately. He agreed without much thought. After knowing each other for so many years, we truly understood one another too well. Amy and her colleagues returned to the hospital and resumed work. My father's and stepmother's business continued to thrive. My younger siblings' futures looked bright and promising. You see, as long as I lowered my head just a little, everything seemed to fall back into place. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that I hadn't stubbornly gone to the extreme and dragged down their futures with me. But who ever thought about Flora? Who asked how much pain and torment she was carrying inside? Yet joy and sorrow in this world are never shared. In my stepmother's words, Flora just has things too easy. That's why she can't tolerate even a grain of sand in her eyes. I moved back into the apartment I'd lived in before marriage. It was the first 3-bedroom apartment Joaquin and I had saved up together for the down payment. He didn't disturb me much, but every morning, he had someone deliver the freshest hydrangeas. Occasionally, he would call, just a few simple pleasantries. But every night when he got home, he would send me a message, with his location attached. I knew what he meant. He wanted me to know he had truly cut ties with those women, that he was sincerely repenting. I didn't find it childish or laughable, nor was I moved. I simply ignored it all with indifference, and began preparing for my new life. Joaquin's words had, after all, reminded me of one thing: when you live with your palm facing upward, even as a victim, you will always seem weak and lacking confidence. Chapter 14. After my post-miscarriage recovery period ended, Joaquin came to this apartment for the first time. When he knocked, I was organizing translation drafts. A few days earlier, once I felt my body had recovered fairly well, I asked a senior from university to introduce me to some freelance translation work. I did quite well, and she happily referred me to several more clients. I'd been very busy lately. The moment I opened the door, a strong smell of alcohol hit me. Joaquin had drunk far too much. His secretary could barely support him. "Madam, the boss had business engagements tonight and drank a bit too much," the secretary said cautiously. "Flora." He pushed the secretary aside and smiled at me, staggered forward and hugged me, almost half his body weight pressed down on me. His face rubbed against mine. His arms locked tightly around me, calling my name over and over. The secretary hurriedly shut the door and left. It took some effort before I managed to push him away. He leaned against the door, tugged at his tie, and pressed his aching brow. The exhaustion on his face was obvious. He looked thinner, his complexion haggard. "Flora," he murmured my name softly. Those eyes, once gentle and steadfast in youth, later growing deep and sharp, now held a childlike grievance. "How long are you going to stay angry? Can you acknowledge me, just a little?" It felt as though something was lodged in my throat. My tear ducts swelled painfully. There were countless sleepless nights when I lay awake in the dark. I had tried to persuade myself, forget it all, forgive him this once. But the moment I closed my eyes, it was the image of him entangled with Lisa. I couldn't accept it, couldn't believe it. How could someone who claimed to love his wife still sleep so calmly with another woman? "It's late. I'm going to rest. You should go back too." I turned and was about to walk into the bedroom. Joaquin grabbed my wrist. He hugged me from behind. His chin rested on my shoulder. "Flora." He gently kissed my earlobe. "Let's make up, okay? Do you know how I've lived this past month? I go home, and you're not there. That house is as cold as an ice cellar." He held me tighter, kissing me more urgently. "Flora, look at me again. We still love each other, don't we?" My tears fell in torrents. Never, not once, have I denied it. I love Joaquin. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in such pain and turmoil. But precisely because I love him, this knot cannot be undone. "Joaquin, you agreed to the separation yourself. If there's a second time, I'll have my lawyer file directly with the court. And don't think of using anyone to threaten me again, because you were the one who broke your promise first." I pushed him away with all my strength. "Leave. This time, I'll pretend nothing happened." Chapter 15. After Joaquin left that night, nearly 2 full months passed. I didn't see him again, but fresh flowers were still delivered every day. The flowers were innocent, so I didn't mistreat them. I'm not good at socializing, but I can focus and work steadily. My prices were reasonable as well. Clients were satisfied, and naturally, collaborations kept increasing. Being busy left me with no time to wallow in sorrow. It was only when Amy asked me out for tea that I learned from her. Lisa had announced her withdrawal from the entertainment industry. Her reputation was now in ruins, and the endorsements and business partnerships tied to her were all affected. She paid huge sums in breach of contract penalties. It seems it was all arranged by Joaquin. She even sent you messages harassing you before. She really got what she deserved. Did she really deserve it? If Joaquin hadn't gone after her, Lisa would still be a red-hot top actress, with a bright future ahead, even if it was karma. The real culprit was still Joaquin. After saying that, Amy looked at me cautiously. Flora, what are you planning to do now? Just stay separated from him like this forever? Amy, just say what you want to say. Honestly, Flora, I really regret it. My mom scolded me too, about the baby. I should have tried harder to persuade you, to make you calm down and think it through again. I held her hand. Amy, I've already thought it through. I don't regret any decision I've made. I grew up in a broken family myself. I know exactly how painful that is. Don't carry any guilt in your heart. But Flora, Joaquin really seems to have repented this time. I smiled lightly and didn't answer Amy's words. Chapter 16. Before Christmas. Isaac, our mutual friend, suddenly called me. Flora, there's something I don't know whether I should tell you. What is it? On the other end of the line, Isaac fell silent. Isaac was my senior from university. When Joaquin started his business after graduation, Isaac had helped him. Over the years, we'd always stayed on good terms. Isaac was 3 years older than me, just turned 30. But he'd never married, never had a girlfriend. I'd once tried to introduce Amy to him, but Isaac politely declined. Later, Joaquin told me that Isaac had someone he liked, but that woman had already gotten married. After that, I gave up on trying to set Isaac up. Flora, how are things between you and Joaquin lately? Isaac's sudden question pulled my thoughts back to the present. We haven't seen each other recently. Are you sure you want to divorce him? Senior, you can just tell me what you want to say. I sensed it had something to do with Joaquin, but I didn't expect that he would betray his vows again so quickly. Chapter 17. On Christmas Eve, Joaquin came looking for me. I didn't open the door. He called me again. This time, I answered. Flora, do you know that sometimes your stubbornness makes people hate you? I clenched my phone and let out a soft laugh. Joaquin, someone who betrays vows has no right to talk about hate. He hung up the phone and turned to leave. I set my phone down and walked to the window. Moments later, I saw him, dressed in a black overcoat, tall and straight, his stride sharp, his presence imposing. When he reached his car, he suddenly stopped and looked up at my building. I didn't avoid his gaze. People who once loved each other now turned into enemies at daggers drawn. Snow fell heavily across the entire city, yet even that could not bridge the chasm between them. In that moment, I wasn't as heartbroken as I had imagined. I only felt a vast, desolate cold. Chapter 18. Isaac called me again 3 days after Christmas. Flora, if you still want to divorce Joaquin, I'll give you the address now. Come over immediately. But if you still want to salvage your marriage, then pretend I never contacted you. I didn't hesitate. Senior, tell me the address. An hour later, I arrived at the private club Isaac had mentioned. He came out to meet me, very naturally. He held an umbrella over my head. Do you want me to go in with you? Isaac asked softly. I shook my head and stopped in front of the elevator. Flora, if you don't want to go up. Senior, I turned to look at him. You said on the phone that the woman Joaquin is seeing looks a lot like me. Is that true? Only the face is a bit similar. Isaac looked at me steadily. Everything else is completely different. Flora, you're one of a kind. I couldn't help smiling. Thank you. Senior, I'm going up now. Isaac didn't say anything else. He pressed the elevator button for me. The elevator stopped on the 6th floor. I walked out into a long corridor. So long it seemed endless. I used to think I was destined to be alone my whole life. Then Joaquin appeared. He held my hand and walked with me for so many years. Now that he was tired and bored, perhaps it wasn't entirely unforgivable. I tried to persuade myself. Flora, don't cry. Don't make a scene. No matter what you see, no matter what happens. Following Isaac's directions, I found the only suite on that floor. Joaquin hadn't even locked the door. I pushed it gently, and it opened. The light inside wasn't bright, but it was enough to see everything at a glance. The air was filled with a familiar, decadent scent. A long-haired woman knelt there, bent over in front of Joaquin. He was reclining in a single sofa. His shirt was disheveled, his belt undone, perhaps because I opened the door so quietly. Neither of them noticed. Those obscene sounds rose and fell. He suddenly tightened his grip in the woman's hair, but as he stood up, he opened his eyes and saw me standing at the doorway. In that single second, the entire world went silent. All sound vanished from my ears. Chapter 19. Flora. Just try, okay? Look, just hold my hand. Hold it like this, and I promise I'll never let go for the rest of my life. Flora, try to trust me, all right? It's not that hard, is it? The young Joaquin's eyes had been clear and resolute. The vows were not false. The love was not false either. In that moment, in that year, every word, every syllable, had been real. How could the young Flora not have felt it? But love that burns too fiercely always leaves behind nothing but ashes in the end. Flora. He pushed the woman away. When he stood up, he looked flustered and awkward. I raised my hand and pointed at him. Put your clothes on first. The smell in the room made me nauseous. I turned and walked out, all the way to the terrace at the end. When Joaquin came out again, he was already fully dressed. Neither of us spoke. The sound of snow falling was so soft. Yet at this moment, it could be heard with startling clarity. On the day I married him, he stood on the stage and slipped the ring onto my finger, when the groom embraced and kissed the bride. I whispered only one sentence into his ear. Joaquin, don't betray me. You only get one chance. But it has always been this way. Those who beg not to be betrayed are the ones who are betrayed in the end. I stood there for a long time, so long that my hands and feet nearly froze. Winter really isn't a pleasant season, because in the cold, people always crave warmth and comfort. Even the resolve to break up often has to be weighed again and again. But at this moment, I was grateful for the cold. It allowed me to remain this composed and this calm. Chapter 20. Let's go handle the paperwork tomorrow. I turned around and looked at the man I had loved for so many years. In fact, even at this moment, I still couldn't deny that I loved him. Someone who had changed all my bottom lines. Someone who had run through more than a decade of my life. How could I just stop loving him because I wanted to? It's just that in this world, there is more than love and romance. I smiled at him. We've known each other for so many years. I still hope we can part on good terms. At such a close distance, I saw his whole body trembling. Some things I couldn't figure out, so I stopped forcing myself to think about them. People must learn to let themselves go. His voice was hoarse. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I stopped looking at him and pulled my coat tighter. Just follow that divorce agreement. Flora, I don't want to waste too much time dividing up property. I can support myself. One person doesn't eat much, doesn't need a big house, and doesn't spend much money. You earned all the money these past few years. Thank you for taking care of me. Tomorrow morning at 9, I'll be waiting for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Chapter 21. The divorce process went very smoothly, except for the property I mentioned. Joaquin stubbornly transferred half of the company shares under his name to me. I didn't refuse. The moment I signed my name and put down the pen, I let out a soft breath. I felt an indescribable sense of relief. Joaquin had probably not slept all night. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his stubble was untrimmed. Throughout the whole process, he seemed somewhat dazed and absent-minded. When we walked out the door, he stopped me. Flora, I'll drive you back. No need. Amy is waiting for me. I waved at him. The snow's heavy. Drive carefully. He stood there without moving. The heavy snow fell in flurries, quickly covering his hair and shoulders with a layer of white. I put on my hat and walked briskly down the steps. Flora. My steps paused for a moment, but I didn't turn around. Joaquin. My voice was loud, as if using this way to cut off everything between us from the past. We won't say goodbye. We'll never see each other again. I kept walking forward and didn't look back once. Even after getting into the car, Amy started the car. She glanced at the rearview mirror a few times. Flora. Joaquin is still standing there. Let him be. Flora. How long will you be gone this time? A client I had previously helped with translation wanted to expand into overseas markets. Because the cooperation had gone very well, they sincerely asked me several times whether I would be willing to go to the overseas branch. They wanted to hire me as a translator at a high salary, but it required long-term residence abroad. At least 3 years. 3 years. I leaned back against the seat and looked at the familiar city outside the window. Perfect timing to go out, see the world, and broaden my horizons. Flora, what if I miss you? Amy sounded reluctant. Then come see me during your vacation. I'll cover food and lodging and even be your tour guide. How about that? Then just wait for me. I'm definitely going to come find you. Chapter 22. The day after I divorced Joaquin. Isaac suddenly called and asked to meet me. The restaurant he chose was the one I used to love back when we were in college. A woman's intuition is always sharp. On the way there, I already had a faint suspicion in my heart. By the time I saw Isaac, that suspicion had been mostly confirmed. He had clearly made a special effort to dress up, and in his hands was a bouquet of hydrangeas, my favorite. A woman who had just ended a disastrous marriage. Quickly receiving signals of pursuit from an elite man. Perhaps that should have been something pleasing, but in my mind, certain things began to connect piece by piece, with Joaquin's current status and influence. Hiding certain matters would be effortless. Lisa had been in the entertainment industry for many years. How could she have been so easily photographed by paparazzi? In fact, back on the night Isaac called me, I had already sensed something. It was just that only now, when everything had finally settled, did I have the mental space to think it through? Isaac was probably the one who had added fuel to the fire. Naturally, I didn't resent the person who had pierced the festering wound of my failed marriage. On the contrary, I should thank him for allowing me to divorce so smoothly. But I was also clearly aware of one thing. Isaac might indeed like me to some extent, yet that liking was more likely born of obsession with what he couldn't have. If I accepted him on a whim, it would only be momentary gratification, followed by the same tragedy repeating itself, and I never allow myself to fall twice over the same mistake. Flora. He walked toward me, holding the flowers. I didn't take the bouquet. The snow fell silently as I looked into his eyes. My gaze was equally calm. Senior, maybe you could try calling my name just once. The hands holding the flowers slowly dropped. The smile on his face faded away along with them. Chapter 23. Do you really have to leave? Isaac had always been a very composed person. Even now, when my rejection was already obvious. Yes, I'm already in the process of applying for a visa. Flora, I know the timing isn't right, after all. You and Joaquin just got divorced. But I'm afraid that if I hesitate again, I'll miss you once more. Senior, I interrupted him. You're actually just trapped in an obsession. Just like Joaquin had been back then. Highly competitive. Unwilling to admit defeat, rather than calling it unwavering devotion. It was more accurate to say he enjoyed the process of conquest. From Lisa, whom he later cheated with, to the woman who looked so much like me. They all shared one common trait: cold aloofness, pride, looking down on others, exactly the kind that most easily stirs a man's desire to conquer. But in the end, once Joaquin conquered them and got them, he immediately found them dull and tasteless, and his feelings toward me weren't much better. If it hadn't been for the affection we shared in our youth, I might have ended up worse than Lisa and the others. Because you never got it, you can't let it go. But if you really do get it, the white moonlight will eventually turn into a grain of rice, and the cinnabar mole will ultimately become disgusting mosquito blood. Flora, you're not me. You can't speculate about and misunderstand my feelings for you like this. I know you've been hurt once, and you won't easily believe in vows anymore. But Flora, you can't sentence me to death as well just because of Joaquin. I looked at him calmly, yet with distance. But Isaac, why should I gamble my own future and happiness once again just to prove whether your feelings are real or fake? I'm honored to know that after all these years, the person you liked was me, but I'm also sorry. Isaac, I don't like you, even though, for a divorced woman like me, you would indeed be a partner who could make me hold my head high. But I will no longer tie my own worth and happiness to a man. Chapter 24. During the period when I was preparing to go abroad, I still heard bits and pieces of news about Joaquin from time to time. One night, I once received a call from a friend, but the voice on the other end was Joaquin's. Flora. He called my name once, without any extra words. After I hung up the phone, he never called again. There was another time. It was Joaquin's mother who called me. He had drunk too much, suffered a gastric hemorrhage, and was sent to the emergency room. She asked if I could go persuade Joaquin. I refused. Flora. Joaquin's mother cried on the other end of the line. Joaquin has been tormenting himself like he doesn't care about his life at all during this period. He truly regrets it. Flora. Couldn't you give him another? I didn't wait for her to finish and rudely hung up the phone. Chapter 25. On the way to the airport, my phone kept ringing nonstop. Old friends from the past were calling me one after another. I knew it was because of Joaquin. It wasn't until the final 5 minutes before boarding the plane, just before turning off my phone, that I answered the last incoming call. Flora. Flora, have you boarded the plane yet? I heard hurried footsteps and the sound of him running. His voice was ragged with heavy breathing. I've already boarded. We're about to take off. Flora. I'll wait for you to come back. I looked out through the small window. Naturally, I couldn't see him. Flora. I'll wait for you to come back. He repeated it once more. My heart was calm, without the slightest ripple. There's no need to wait for me, Joaquin. I saw the distant sky being swallowed by a blood-red setting sun. Every complete farewell in my life seemed to happen at dusk. Flora. Even if I have to wait a lifetime, I won't give up. I smiled silently and ended the call. I was no longer 18-year-old Flora. Promises meant to last a lifetime. Only a fool would believe them. I leaned back in my seat, put on my headphones, and closed my eyes. It was still the song I had loved most when I was young. I am a nostalgic person, but I am also someone who never looks back. Chapter 26. Joaquin's point of view. In the 3rd year after Flora went abroad, the singer we loved back in our school days made a comeback. He held many stops on his concert tour. I went to one of them when we were in high school. I once told Flora that in the future, I would take her to countless concerts of my favorite idol. But later, he withdrew from the music scene due to illness and disappeared for several years. Something so simple, and yet, all the way until our final divorce, I never managed to do it for her. When my idol stood on stage singing Dusk, tens of thousands of people below sang along in unison. That bearded man on stage cried until he was completely undone. And me, standing awkwardly out of place in the crowd. At some unknown moment, my face was also covered in tears. I still remember the tears sliding from your eyes. Heartbroken beyond words. In the chaos, there's the illusion of scorching tears. The horizon at dusk cuts off happiness and joy. Love has already turned to illusion. I still remember saying goodbye. My resolve is cold and hard as iron. In the darkness, there's the illusion of being burned by a blazing sun. The day Flora and I signed the divorce papers, a massive snowstorm fell over the capital. Even now, I still remember it clearly. When she left the Civil Affairs Bureau without turning her head back, I was clearly plunged into an icy abyss. Yet at the same time, it felt as if my whole body were being scorched by the sun. I never once thought about separating from Flora. I always believed that in this lifetime, no one and nothing could ever tear Flora and me apart. But in the end, it was I who lost her with my own hands, the girl I loved most. I once wanted nothing more than to give her the very best this world had to offer. Yet in the end, the person who hurt her until she was covered in wounds was also me. Isaac once asked me, "You love Flora so much, why did you still cheat?" I've asked myself that question countless times too. I loved her so much that I would have given my life for her. So why did I still cheat? I could never find a reasonable answer. Even I didn't understand why I slept with those women. Was it just for stimulation? Was it just because marriage had become bland and lukewarm? Actually, none of that was the truth. The truth was that I had already forgotten Joaquin's original intentions. I arrogantly believed that Flora couldn't live without me, that she would always forgive me and accept me again. Because I, Joaquin, was the only man in this world who could enter Flora's heart. Because once I had plucked down the moon, she was no longer high above, distant and dazzling. Gradually, all I saw was her ordinariness and plainness. And I forgot how radiant she once was. I forgot what the real Flora was like. I forgot the words she once said to me. Joaquin, I don't believe in love, but I choose to believe in you. Still, remember this clearly, I'll only give you one chance. If you lose me, you'll never find me again. She was always someone who meant what she said and did what she promised, no matter how beautiful and gentle she looked on the outside. Deep down, she was just as proud and stubborn. How could I ever think that Lisa and that other woman were like Flora? They didn't resemble her in the slightest. In Flora's second year abroad, I heard from Amy that she had dated a mixed-race boyfriend. That relationship was short, only half a year, but Amy said Flora was especially happy during that time. If it hadn't been for that man trying to force marriage on her, secretly sabotaging the condom, Flora definitely wouldn't have broken up with him so quickly. Later on, she dated a few more times. Every one of those men wanted to marry her, but she had clearly made up her mind never to marry again. She walked away freely, never looking back. Yet somehow became the unforgettable cinnabar mark in every ex-boyfriend's heart. Her current partner is a very romantic Italian gentleman. I secretly looked at their photos together through Amy's posts. Flora was wearing a bikini, standing beside that Italian man, looking especially delicate and petite. The smile on her face was a kind of happiness and uninhibited joy I had never seen before. In one photo, that blonde man held her tightly, lowered his head, and kissed her. She stood on tiptoe, responding passionately and boldly. I was so jealous I was almost going mad. Yet like self-inflicted punishment, I looked at those photos again and again. Later, I couldn't hold back anymore and begged Amy. Using her phone, I called Flora once. When the call connected, her bright, radiant laughter came through the line. Darling, did you miss me? In that instant, my entire body began to tremble. My tongue felt knotted, apart from my rapid breathing and my crazed heartbeat. I couldn't utter a single word. Amy, why aren't you saying anything? Flora's cheerful voice rang out again. I finally spoke. Flora, it's me. There was a brief silence on the other end, but soon she spoke again. Joaquin, how have you been lately? She sounded warm and casual, as if speaking to an old friend. I wanted to say I wasn't well, not well at all, but what came out instead was, pretty good. And you? I'm doing pretty well too. Flora. A man's awkward Chinese came through the phone. It was her boyfriend calling her. Flora apologized to me. Sorry. My boyfriend's calling me. I can't talk with you anymore, okay? It's all right, then, goodbye. She had already hung up. Amy crossed her arms and looked at me with a smiling gaze. Joaquin, why do you bother? Yes, why bother? I slowly stood up and walked out the door. It was dusk again. I seemed to see a small Flora, sitting alone by the river, listening to music. Back then, to Joaquin, she was the moon hanging high in the sky, a beautiful moon he could never touch. He once plucked that precious moon down with his own hands. But in the end, the one who complained that the moon was no longer bright and dazzling, no longer worthy of being looked up to, was also him, and someone who has once had the moon. Someone who has been loved by the moon. How could he ever truly let it go in this lifetime?